Come on, let's go.
So the main point of this CQC, this reworked CQC that I'm going to talk about, is tackling the issue of just certain strategies working so much better than others, and therefore washing out, certain play styles. And by that I mean, I want to take CQC, a mechanic that's usually brought down to just pressing a single button or holding a single button, and I want to turn it into a 3-step process that has you jumping between the steps depending on what's going on. And those 3 steps, or those 3 layers, I guess we can call them, are going to be your gun, your knife, and your actual CQC throwdowns. But before we really start talking about these layers, we need to first talk about one of the most important parts about reworking CQC, and that is reworking your enemies. You see, in the game, your enemies are only really deadly if you're really far away from them, or you're in that mid-range where they can throw grenades, overwhelm you with fire, or hit you with certain power weapons. Now, I would want to add to them where they become more of a threat when they're up close to you if they are alerted. In a way, Snake Eater already has this, with the enemies going to knife you when you get really close and the knife doing crazy amounts of damage. But I would like to push it even further beyond, where when they are alerted and you are coming at them to try to throw them, they could put up more of a resistance. Add a chance that your CQC moves will fail against a alerted enemy, and all of a sudden, stuff like your knife and your gun start becoming much more integral to the CQC process. Because think about it like this. I, for example, am pretty freaking good with hip tosses. There's a lot of situations, there's a lot of throws that I've just worked into my muscle memory. However, there comes a point where if I'm trying to go at someone that already sees me and is already trying to attack me, to get in that perfect position for a hip toss, especially if they know what they're doing, they're going to resist. It's going to be hard for me to get there, and odds are they're going to punch me, kick me, push me away, or just collapse on me before I can do a proper hip toss. So there is an element of improvisation that comes into a one-on-one fight. Now, if I'm going at someone that doesn't know what they're doing or is unaware that I'm coming at them, getting in that position for a hip toss is really easy. But then a third element is that if I'm coming at somebody and there's something there to distract them, maybe something has been thrown in their face, maybe I throw a fake jab. Either way, if their mind is preoccupied with something else, it becomes 11 times easier to go for that hip toss. It's this kind of mentality that I would like to apply to the enemies in Snake Eater. So for example, if you're running at a guy that's already trying to shoot you with his AK and you go to do a CQC takedown, there's a much better chance he will bunt or knife you off. But if you go up to a guy that doesn't know you're there and you try to do a CQC takedown, hell yeah, you got the surprise on him, you'll bring him down. But what about that third part? What about distractions? That's where this first layer of CQC is going to come in.
Commencing virtuous mission now.
Now, any of you that have been around for a while, any of you that have watched my videos know that when I'm rebalancing a Metal Gear Sandbox, I am taking out the Trank pistol. I think these things are broken. I think they encourage a, single strategy. It's almost as bad as the Halo precision weapon meta, where all you do is just take pot shots at the head because that's just the best thing for any range. So what I would want to do is only feature the 1911 as your only pistol. Now you might be thinking at this point, boss, what are you thinking? The non-lethal techniques are core to Metal Gear's identity. The anti-war narrative is imperative to the plot and the characters, and listen, it's all okay. You can still go non-lethal. CQC can still be non-lethal even though you are using your 1911. Now, later entries in the Metal Gear series, for example ground zeros, feature lethal weapons that you can fire into an enemy to put them into a stun state, so you can run up to them, close the gap, and CQC them. There's a lot of games that actually do this. I mean, even Last of Us has it where you can shoot an enemy, and if they're not dead, they're still going to be writhing in pain, and that opens them up for, a melee attack so you can save your ammunition. So I would just translate that over to Snake Eater, where the 1911 would remain a very weak pistol. However, if you shoot an enemy, there's much more of a stun period that allows you to go in for that hip toss, for that leg drag, whatever kind of CQC move you're going for. So that first layer of CQC would be your gun. It would be shooting an enemy that's already alerted, or that's looking at you, or that's, already trying to kill you, and stunning them, disarming them, or opening them up for that knockout attack. So yeah, there is no tranq pistol, but this lethal weapon can still be used in a non-lethal means. Now that second layer of CQC would be the actual CQC move where you go in, you throw them down, or maybe you're interrogating them, or maybe you're choking them out, snapping their neck, maybe you're throwing punches and kicks, and you're using these depending on whether or not the enemy is stunned, whether they know you're there. If they know you're there, maybe it's safer to just throw some punch and kicks rather than trying to, grab them and give them an opportunity to stab you or something like that. If you just kick them from a little further away, maybe that stuns them and opens them up. Whereas if they don't know you're there, maybe it's better to just get behind them and just choke them out really fast. But then this brings us to our third layer of CQC.
Try to remember some of the basics of CQC.
Now, I mentioned at the start of this video that the knife is probably the most underutilized weapon in Snake Eater. It takes longer than CQC to kill, and aside from, killing certain animals and saving you ammo, it doesn't really have much of a purpose. Here in this reworked version of CQC, the knife would be integral. Let's say you're sneaking up on an enemy, and they don't see you, but right before you do your throw, another enemy sees you, that enemy turns around, and all of a sudden, they're about to get a lethal hit in on you. In these panicked moments, you can take out your knife for an incredibly quick kill. Or, let's say you are in stealth. Let's say you have an enemy in a chokehold. However, there's an enemy coming around the corner, and if you don't kill this guy and move really fast, you're going to get spotted. The knife is something that will take you less than a second to slit their throat and vanish from the scene. The knife is fast, the knife is lethal. Let's say there's an enemy who's struggling while you're trying to hold them. Because if you're in combat or if their friends are there, the enemy's going to be a little bit braver than if you catch them alone, if you haven't shot them at all, if they still feel nice and tough. The knife could be used to put a little bit of pressure on their throat, kind of like how he does in the gameplay, except he has his knife pointing away from their necks. Point the knife towards their necks and have that constant threat be there, and get them back in line. If you generally just want to move faster, use the knife. If the enemy has you in a hold, or if the enemy's currently attacking you, use the knife to get out of it. I don't want to compare, oh yeah, Resident Evil 4 remake is great, so the Snake Eater remake has to do everything this game does. I don't want to do that. I'm not trying to come off that way. However, Resident Evil 4 remake is a great example of how to utilize a knife in this way. Have situations in which the enemy can overwhelm you, can grab you, can stick you in a corner. Have situations where you need a very quick lethal out, and have that knife play that role. Now, in regards to, knife degradation, Snake Eater doesn't really have many mechanics for repairing or upgrading your weapons, so I wouldn't add something like that in there. However, you have the knife in the game that helps you escape traps. Why not have it help you escape enemies that are trying to grab you? Or again, switch to something lethal when you're trying to choke someone out and someone's coming by, just something where you need to move quick. And if you're a lethal player and you don't want to use CQC at all, use the knife. Go through this game just going by and slitting people's throats or stabbing them in places where they're not going to recover from, and just flying through these bases. You know, Snake Eater already has a penalty for going lethal, so we don't need to worry about that. But yeah, just have that option there. But the main idea by having these 3 different layers is that whether or not you're using your knife to stab someone and kill them, whether or not you're using your CQC techniques to deal with them non-lethally, or whether or not you're using your pistol to bridge the gap, you have this system where you're constantly balancing out, okay, how much time do I have to do this takedown? How much force do I need to do to get this guy open for a takedown? And do I have the time to try to get this guy open for a takedown? Or do I need to act quickly in order to survive or avoid detection? So with that in mind, you're constantly going to be going back between, just sneaking up on a guy to do some CQC, but then he sees you, so you use your knife to kill him really quick. And then another guy sees you, so you use your pistol to stun him, then you run up to him and you do a CQC move to knock him out. You're bouncing through those 3 techniques all the different time. Your pistol, your knife, your CQC, they're all a part of each other, like the cutscenes show, and there is depth added to the gameplay because you're constantly thinking about these different approaches. So the strategy is no longer let me sneak in the grass and just headshot everything I see. The strategy is no longer let me just run up to everyone and hold circle and just win the game. Now it's about bouncing between these 3 different techniques depending on the situations you organically find yourself in and trying to adapt in order to survive, which, last time I checked, is what Snake Eater is all about.
This is Solid Snake. Hey, subscribe to Pliskin Boy. God damn it.
You heard him.